Hello everyone, this is part 8 of What If Naruto Fell in Love with Kurenai, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The next day was a sad one for Konoha. Today was the day of the funeral for the Hyugas. Naruto decided to forget the henge for him to hide on today and instead pulled out a cloak Anko had gotten for him as a present for learning the Doton Jutsu she wanted him to learn. This one was solid black with a hood that covered his head completely where you could only see his face from the front. It was much like Anbu wore, which may not be too far-fetched considering Anko is the second highest Anbu currently in Konoha, directly under Ibiki. Underneath it he had his vest with all his scrolls and his weapon pouches on both legs. During the training yesterday, Jiraiya had given him a book on seals his father wrote and Naruto found one that he could really use, so he quickly made it on each of his kunai pouches and one of each hand. It was a quick summon seal where all he had to do was send a little chakra burst and bam, kunai in hand. He went to Kurenai room and knocked. She had laid beside him again last night and he liked waking up with her beside him, but she quickly went to start getting ready. Kurenai said in a sad voice, "Come in," and Naruto opened the door and saw her dress sitting on the bed. He walked over to her and sat down on his knees with his hood pulled back and pulled her into a hug and said in a soft voice, "I know, I miss her also," as Kurenai was crying. After several minutes she asked, "Why did this have to happen?" Naruto closed his eyes and said, "I don't know Tenchi, but I do know one thing. Shush is watching over us both now, making sure we will be alright." Kurenai pulled away and looked into his eyes and asked, "How do you know that?" Naruto said, "Because it was her gift to me that killed the Kyuubi. I know the old man said it was my bloodline, but I think it was her who gave me a new chance at life. I think Hinata was the one who really cared it so we could be together. She is also watching out for you because you were the closest thing she had to a mother in a long time. Shush is giving you a chance for happiness with me because she cared for us both. Why else would so many people readily accept our relationship when they found out? I mean, you're the most beautiful woman in this village, with nearly every male in the village wanting to be with you, but you never found one that would make you feel the way you do with me now. Until recently I was the village demon. For us to have what we have now, it must be because we have someone looking out for us, and I think it's Hinata." Kurenai smiled at this and said, "You're right, I think so also. It would be like her." Naruto nods and said, "That's why today, when I go to the funeral, I am going to smile when I say goodbye to her. A smile and a thank you for what she has done. I won't let her memory be a sad one." Kurenai nods and said, "You're right, I won't cry either unless it's tears of joy." Naruto pulled her into a hug again and held her close, and after several moments he let go and looked into her eyes. She looked into his and they slowly leaned forward and closed their eyes, sharing a true kiss. No secrets, no regrets, no hiding. As they broke apart they looked into the other's eyes and saw nothing but love. Naruto said, "Promise me something." Kurenai looked confused and Naruto said, "Promise me that if something happens today you will live and go on." Kurenai went wide-eyed a moment and said, "Nothing's going to happen." Naruto said, "I know, you're right, nothing's going to happen, but if it does, promise me you will protect yourself. I know you strong enough to do it, but I will feel better if you promised me that you will protect yourself, and if something happened to me you will go on and live your life as happily as you can with no regrets. Please. I just got a bad feeling and I won't be able to save everyone if I have to worry about you." Kurenai stood up and walked over to her dresser, grabbing a hairbrush and had her back to him and said, "Only if you promise me you will come back to me. You never go back on your words, so promise me if something does happen you will come back to me alive." Naruto closes his eyes and said, "All right, I promise." Kurenai nods and she drops the hairbrush in her hand, and before Naruto knew it he had been pushed on top of the bed with Kurenai on top of him, holding him tightly with her head in the crook of his N. She was crying and said, "Please don't leave me. I love you. I know I do. Every time we're apart I feel pain. I feel you when you're sad, when you're hurting, when you're angry. I feel your pain and you feel mine. You are my everything. Please don't leave me for anything." I can't live without you. Please come back to me. Naruto was shocked. Kurenai has always held her emotions to everyone. Sure, he could feel hers for some reason, but never like this. It was like a dam broke and it was flooding him. He slowly put his arm around her and said in a soft voice, I love you also. I never knew love until you came into my life. I would S without you and I won't S without you in my arms. Kurenai never knew she would be so happy hearing those 3 words, but she said, so there's no going back now, we finally know what we feel, huh? Naruto said, I knew all along what it was, I just never knew the name of it. Kurenai chuckled and then a flash of light illuminated the entire room and both sighed and said, Anko, you're S. A chuckle was heard that was definitely not Anko and both looked up and saw Sakura there and Naruto went wide-eyed and she said, you both make a cute couple, cousin, but I must know, what the hell happened to you? Why do you look so different? Naruto slipped his head back onto a pillow before bursting out laughing and said, I guess I should say I'm sorry for lying to you all these years. Sakura waved her hand and said, don't worry about it. I understand completely. Kurenai and I had a little talk the other day and she told me about how you both got together. I also understand why we never had a chance as children, but there's no way in hell you're getting away with not helping me get rid of this damn woman in my head. Naruto chuckled and Kurenai said, so how did you get in? Sakura said, your other roommate let me in when her and Iruka left. They said you both were still here after I told them I knew about you both and that you're my cousin. They told me to prepare for a shock, but you look like your father now. What happened to your whiskers? Naruto got up after Kurenai did and he cracked the bones in his back before he took his cloak off and his wings flew out, making Sakura go wide-eyed and gape and said, the fox is S. Somehow when I was in my C no jutsu activated the Uzumaki bloodline and since the fox was my inner self. Sakura nods and said, it S and your body made you an angel. Kakashi-sensei is right, you really are the most surprising ninja ever. I wonder what he will do when he sees you. I mean, he was your father's student. Naruto said, he nearly fainted. Sakura went wide-eyed again and said, he already know. Naruto nods and said, yeah, some stuff has happened lately that I am involved in. You're currently not allowed to know, and if you were not family you would not know about this yet either. The Sandaime plans to tell the entire village later. Sakura, do you have your ninja equipment with you? Sakura said, no, why? It's just a funeral. Kurenai said, Sakura, come over here to my dresser and stock up on weapons. I am going to use my rank to allow you to know that Konoha may be attacked at any time now. All Anbu and Junin have been told to prepare for an attack in case we are attacked. Sakura was shocked and asked, who's going to attack us? Kurenai looked at Naruto and he said, remember the snake bastard we met in the Forest of Death, Orochimaru? Him and the Sound may attack and we may also be attacked by Suna as well, so watch out for them for now. Don't attack them unless they attack first, but keep that in mind in case of a double cross. We believe it's going to happen during the Chunin exams, but because of what has happened it may be any time now. That's all I can tell you. Sakura narrowed her eyes and said, sound. The village Sasuke was going to go to. Naruto nods, hearing the venom in her voice when she said Sasuke name, and Sakura quickly started to arm. Kurenai said, Naruto, can you give us a minute alone? I need to help Sakura get some stuff. Naruto nods and walks out of the room. A few minutes later they both walk out of the room and Naruto noticed she had changed her cloths a little and had a few noticeable accessories under her cloths. He nods and pulls his hood up, hiding himself, and he walked over and took Kurenai's arm and linked his into hers and led her out the door. Sakura came up beside them and walked together and Naruto said, remember Sakura, don't tell anyone what you have heard, and if you need me call me today, call me Maelstrom. Both women looked at him and Sakura said, why not Tenchi, it suits your new look. Naruto said, true, but my name also means Maelstrom besides fishcakes, and if you saw how I fight now you would believe it suits me perfect. Sakura snorts and said, whatever Maelstrom. I know you're only changing your name so you could be seen together with your Tenchi. Anyways, I will play along, but I think you should be Tenchi. Naruto nods and together they walk the rest of the way to the funeral. Naruto stood by Kurenai, who stood next to Kiba and Shino, who quirked an eyebrow, but that was all, and Sakura walked over to Tenten and Ino and sat with them. The Sandaime looked at Naruto for a moment as he walked in front of the crowd and nodded slowly and said, it is a sad day in the history of the village. Several days ago this village had a terrible incident where enemy ninjas snuck into the village and set traps to destroy the Hyuga clan. It has been determined that they were aided by a fellow Konoha citizen, making several people murmur having not heard about this. The Hokage said, this person not only is believed to be responsible with aiding the enemy into entering Konoha but planned to defect from the village but not before he attempted to are the heiress of the Hyuga clan, shocking many of the citizens even more. The third said, this person while attempting to carry out this act ked her but not before she ked him also in self-defense. The person was none other than our own Sasuke Uchiha, making everyone who had not known gasp. Several council members fell in their chairs at this. The Hokage said, it is for this reason that I have decided on this type of funeral for Sasuke, as two Anbu appeared with Sasuke body in their arms and they quickly threw it into the air as they made hand signs and sent out two great fireballs cremating the body. The Hokage then said, he will be marked down as a traitor to Konoha and will forever be remembered as a disgrace, never being honored. Now that his body has been taken care of I would like to continue with the funeral service for the honorable Hyuga clan. I would like for everyone to bow their heads as the gongs are rung 12 times in memory of them. As everyone bowed their heads a loud gong was heard. Naruto closed his eyes as he lowered his head and listened to the gong thinking about Hinata. It was then that he felt it. He quickly opened his eyes and saw feathers and screamed, Genjutsu, as he put his hands in a ramseal and quickly sent out a massive chakra pulse dispelling it on everyone within 100 yards of him. Kurenai said, niece, I had just noticed it a moment before you did. Just then several explosions were heard around Konoha and the third who was on a platform said, all Chunin and Junins are to go intercept the attacking army. Genin to aid in moving all civilians to the shelters. Namikaze, it seems Shukaku is here, take care of him, after that as Sanin you are to aid where you feel you would be of most use, making everyone in the crowd gasp at the name and then again as Naruto quickly threw his cloak off him and extended his wings and looked at Kurenai before he took flight shocking everyone. Kurenai said, Kiba, you aid Shino in helping evacuate the civilian, Shino, your rank is now active, you are in charge of evacuation Chunin, as she took off running toward the gates. Kiba looked at Shino and said, Chunin, what the hell is going on? Shino smirked and said, that is not for you to know right now, my bugs detect several people heading this way who seem to be our enemies, as his bugs flew out of his jacket. The Hokage quickly got rid of his robes and saw Manda with Orochimaru on its head. He then saw the Kazekage also there and he took off running toward it. Jiraiya who had been behind the Sandaime when Naruto warned about the Genjutsu quickly shushin to the west gates when he saw several summoned snakes appear. Naruto after he flew out of the outdoor funeral he quickly headed toward where he saw Shukaku. He flew toward it and saw several sound and sand nins coming in the walls. He quickly put his hands together and said, Taju Kijbunshin no Justu. And 1200 Kijbunshins appeared flying in the air stopping the force of the attacking and defending ninja as they all looked at the sky full of angels and the Bunshin took out kunais and threw them at the ground flashing through handseals and said, Kunai Bunshin no Jutsu. As the 1200 kunais quickly turned into 12,000 blanketing the area where the ninja were king around 100 sound nins and 20 sand nins. At that moment they dispersed over the city heading toward the enemies taking out easy targets before heading toward Shukaku in waves of attacks and groups. At that moment the Konoha nins smirked as they saw the fear in the sand and sound nins faces and begin fighting with renewed vigor. Naruto charged at Shukaku flying and he saw Shukaku crush several trees as it approached the village walls. He then summoned a kunai and wrapped an exploding tag on it throwing it at the demon as he flashed through his own handseals and the kunai multiplied into 30 and suddenly from behind him 100s more came flying by all hitting Shukaku at different spots completely covering him in explosions. Naruto smirked and thought, you're not so tough. Just then a scream was heard from inside the smoke from all the explosions and then the smoke was sucked away as mouths could be seen all over the demon's body sucking in huge amounts of air and Naruto's smirk fell away and he had to throw a Hiraishin kunai at the ground as the demon launched massive blast of air at all the flying bunchins. Instantly nearly 900 of them were destroyed. The forces of sand and sound smirked at this and began fighting Ajin heavily. Naruto frowned as most of his clones were destroyed and he noticed all the damage was slowly repairing. He saw he was near Shukaku feet and smirked as he quickly bit his thumb and started flashing through hand seals as he flew toward the demon's feet and slammed them into the ground, instantly launching Shukaku into the air as Gambunta appeared underneath him screaming, "What the hell was that on my head?" as he turned and saw Shukaku hit the ground. Gambunta sweet dropped as Naruto landed on his nose and said, "Sorry about that, boss. He was getting too close to Konoha and I need your help defeating him." Gambunta saw Shukaku getting up and said, "I see, you owe me for this, kid. There's the spot. Look on his head. You see that kid asleep on it. That is the source of his power. Wake the kid up and the demon will go back to sleep." Naruto nods and said, "Can you help distract him a few minutes?" Shukaku screamed, "I will KU Angel and your little frog too." Gambunta sweet dropped and said, "I'm neither a frog or little bub, let's dance," as he pulled out his dagger. Naruto smirked and flew into the air as Gambunta jumped at Shukaku and cut off his arm. Naruto flew under both, and when he was under Shukaku he threw another kunai with an exploding tag on it at Shukaku tail and multiplied it and then flew up the backside of the sand demon. As he was screaming about its arm, his tail was blown off, making it scream out and fly into Gambunta's arms, and both Gambunta and Shukaku kissed. As both jumped backwards gagging, they screamed at the same time, "I'm going to KU." As Gambunta attacked with his dagger and Shukaku grabbed his tail, reforming it into a club, and they began fighting each other. Naruto sweet dropped when he saw the kiss and then the so-called weapon fight and looked around to see what he could do. He then smirked and created as many Kijibunshians as he could, and they flew into the trees and laid about ninja wire everywhere before they destroyed several trees with Razingans, making them fall. Using the wires they began flapping their wings and slowly picked up the log and flew with it toward the sand demon's backside, and Naruto flew in the middle of the two fighting giants and screamed, "Konoha Ultimate Secret Taijutsu, 1000 feet Tree of Death," as the tree was flown right where Shukaku ass should have been, making the demon scream again as it flew toward Manda. Several minutes earlier the Sandime landed in front of Manda and sent a massive mud dragon at Manda, which forced the snake to dodge and Orochimaru and the Yondaime Kazekage to jump off of his head. They landed on the ground and Orochimaru said, "Ah, sensei, it's good to see you again. Tell me, have you come to offer me help destroying the leaf?" Sarutobi said, "No, Orochimaru, I can't believe you would stoop so low as to attack your home village." Orochimaru said, "What a shame. Tell me, what's with the angel I have seen?" as he looked where Naruto was fighting Shukaku. Sarutobi chuckled and said, "Ah yes, I believe you are not familiar with Naruto Namikaze, the Tenshi Sannin of Konoha." Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and said, "You lie. There is no Tenshi Sannin and there are no Namikazes. The last S out saving this pitiful village." Sarutobi said, "Ah yes, remember how he beat Kyubi? That was his son." Orochimaru went wide-eyed a moment. Just then an explosion happened behind him and he saw Manda being crushed by Shukaku, who was on of the snake. Just then Gambunta landed on top of Shukaku, crushing Manda even more, and said, "Anyone for a sandwich?" Orochimaru was not amused and quickly, while everyone was distracted, summoned the grasscutter and spat it at the Sandime, who was looking at the summons and demons. The sword LD him in the stomach, making him go wide-eyed, and then looked at the sword before he slowly started to stagger, already feeling the effect of the poison. Naruto was flying after the demon when he saw Gambunta land on it and said, "Anyone for a sandwich?" as he jumped again. Naruto giggled at the joke until out of the corner of his eye he saw the Sandime stagger a little with a sword in his stomach. Naruto screamed, "NNNNNNO," as he charged over, grabbing the Hokage and flew toward the hospital. He glanced back, looking at the smirking Orochimaru and the smug Kazekage, and released the hold he had on Gambunta, making it return to the summon world. Naruto arrived at the hospital and quickly ran inside and saw several medics, and he grabbed one and said, "Get me some doctors now," releasing enough ki that made the doctor piss himself. The medic nods and ran off, and a few seconds later several came and gasped seeing the Hokage. One removed the sword and started working on him and frowned and said, "H has been severely poisoned. I need him taken to ICU immediately," as he took off with the Hokage and several medics. Naruto looked at the sword and grabbed it before turning and storming toward the exit. He saw Iruka, who had his arm in a sling, and said, "Iruka, are you okay?" Iruka looked at Naruto and said, "Yeah, my arms got broke and I'm running low of chakra, but other than that I am fine." "What are you doing here? I figured you would still be fighting." Naruto looked outside and could see Shukaku coming toward the village agent and said, "The Sandaim's been critically wounded. Can you still run?" Iruka said, "Yeah," shocked to hear the Hokage was out of action. Naruto said, "Good, I got a mission for you." Iruka said, "Naruto, I." He was silent when he saw the glare Naruto shot him and only could nod. Naruto said, "I need you to find Ibiki and tell him I need him to prepare all ninja for a counter-attack. I'm about to blow a hole in the enemy lines." Iruka nods and jumps away scared for the first time in a long time of Naruto. Naruto quickly flapped his wings and looked at the sword and said, "Let's go find your master," as he flew into the sky. Naruto quickly flew toward Shukaku again and when he got close enough he threw grass cutter as Shukaku yellow eye piercing it making the demon scream as Naruto flew at the head of the demon who was thrashing about grabbing the sleeping Gaara yanking him free of the demon's body as he flew as fast as he could toward the sky. When it got to the point he thought he couldn't breath he began to spin as he pulled his wings around both him and Gaara and then fell at terminal velocity at the ground and when he was about 1,000 feet from the ground he opened his wings letting go of Gaara who slammed into the ground even when the sand caught him several bones were broken and Naruto using his speed grabbed the sword that was laying in the middle of sand flying toward where Manda was again with the Kazekage and Orochimaru on top. Both men were smirking as a sonic boom was heard and they looked toward their left and saw something flying across the ground at speeds they could not follow. All they saw was the dust trail behind it as it approached and Orochimaru said, "Manda, look out." Manda looked and at that moment screamed out as Naruto pulled up under its belly slamming the sword into its skin pulling it as he flew up the snake's body. Orochimaru and the Kazekage both jumped away as Naruto flew past them in the air making both look up as he threw the sword into the heart of the Kazekage as he spinned, quickly getting rid of his speed and said, "Orochimaru, today US." Orochimaru said, "Well if it isn't the QB brat. Tell me, was Sensei final moments painful?" as he smirked. Naruto charged at the body of the Kazekage grabbing the grass cutter and flashing through hand signs as the sword was covered in wind and Naruto charged Orochimaru and SD thought the body of Orochimaru who fell over shocking Naruto as the body that fell over was not Orochimaru but Mizuki. Naruto looked around and saw Orochimaru was nowhere to be seen. Letting his anger get the best of him he flew toward the walls of the city and saw a new wave of enemy forces coming. This time they all had Chunin and Junin vest on and he thought, so he used Genin and Mercs as cannon fodder to tire our troops out. Well he fed with the wrong village, as he closed his eyes. Ibiki, Kakashi, Guy, and Jiraiya all landed beside him and Jiraiya said, "What do you think Gaki?" Naruto said, "Tell everyone to fall back behind the walls and hold on. Kakashi, if I don't survive this take care of Kurenai and Sakura for me," making all four men look at him. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes and said, "What are you planning Gaki?" Naruto said, "A bloodbath," as he slammed Grasscutter into the ground in front of him before he flew in front of the walls as all his Kijibunshin landed around the outside walls and then suddenly chakra strings were connected to each of the Kijibunshins as Naruto slowly opened his eyes. Jiraiya said, "Ibiki, do what the Gaki said. I don't know what he plans but I got a bad feeling about this." Naruto suddenly exploded with chakra that transferred to each of his clones and Kakashi looked at Guy and said, "You didn't, did you?" Guy who was wide-eyed as well said, "No, I swear." Naruto body then exploded with chakra agent which transferred to each of his clones. Then a third and fourth explosion his. Naruto opened his eyes and said, "Today you will all tell the Shinigami to have Orochimaru room waiting for him," as he began flashing through hand seals as chakra began seeping out of each of his and his clones' wings and they all said, "Daikamiteki, great cutting whirlwind," and flapped their wings toward the attacking army several times as wind blades flew into the air before Naruto body exploded a fifth time as the chakra wave passed from him to each of his clones at the moment of release the wind condensed together and became self-reliant. Jiraiya said, "My god," as he used chakra to hold onto the roof as the attack began. Naruto clones all exploded as he fell to the ground passed out and his body was slowly being sucked toward what he had just created. Jiraiya acting quickly summoned a toad who caught Naruto in its tongue pulling him back. Kakashi looked at the destruction as several of Konoha shinobi arrived and one asked, "What is that?" Jiraiya said, "It's an attack that has not been recreated in nearly 200 years. It's called the Living Maelstrom. Nothing survives it. It is all wind. The color you see is because of all the dirt and trees that are being cut to ribbons in it. The last person to create it was the sixth realm sage, and it cost him his life. Nothing any of us do can stop it. Once it starts, it moves on its own until it wears itself out. Kakashi asked, "How powerful is this attack, Jiraiya-sama?" Jiraiya was quite a moment and said, "You been to wave before, right, Kakashi?" Kakashi said, "Yeah, not too long ago." "Why?" Jiraiya said, "The bridge they built. The Great Naruto Bridge. How wide is it?" Kakashi said, 2.5 miles. "Why?" Jiraiya looked at him and said, "Before 200 years ago, that stretch where the bridge is was once land that connected Wave to the Fire Country. That attack destroyed the land and create that channel between Wave and Fire Country. To think the Gaki here just created the same attack." Everyone was looking at Naruto, who was still being held by the toad, and a Chunin asked, "Who is he, Jiraiya-sama? He looks familiar, but I can't place him." Jiraiya said, "This is Naruto Namikaze, son of the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha and the Tenshi Sannin." Just then a high-pitched scream was heard and a voice said, "I will KO Angel," from inside the attack. As each of the men looked, they could see the demon Shukaku being pulled away in the attack. It was 2 miles wide and was moving very slowly away from the village. Anything that got close to it would be sucked into it and cut to pieces. The sand and sound armies were running from it as fast as possible in retreat. For those of you trying to image what it looks like, it's an F5 tornado. Silence was all that could be heard as everyone slowly went about looking for any remaining enemies, wounded allies, or SB. The first wave of the attack had ended and several good men and women had lost their lives, but the results of this attack would forever change the world. The day was the birth of the Tenshi Sannin, the Angel of Death. The day where Konoha's simple lives were changed forever. To what was still to be determined. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.